13, and I'm really excited because so far I've did Advent of Code 2022, and I get to day 13. I was able to solve it, but that was, so to say, the highest I got. And a few months before that I tried 2020, and I get to day 10 inclusive, and I start seeing that the challenges start getting very involving and reaching the limit of my abilities, and they weren't solvable in reasonable time. I was spending I would say for day 13 of 2022 I spent 6-7 hours, not in one go but in two goes, to get part 1 and part 2 solved, which was quite involving for me. Doing that in Go, in some other language might be a little bit easier, but still the thinking and so on was very involving. And let's see how we'll do with GPT-4 for that. For people that are joining the channel, and that's the first video that they're seeing, we've been doing Advent of Code 2021 in Go using chat GPT, now GPT-4, using calls to the API of OpenAI, using also Bing mainly for some of the coding challenges, and especially in the part when ChatGPT didn't have GPT version available, GPT-4 version available, and we were using Bing because it was obvious at that stage that actually that's already better than ChatGPT. How we structured the projects: for each day we have two folders. They have input file, which is the input that needs to be read. There is the test file, some small example with which we test the program. Main Go file, which we make it runnable from here with executing it with run command. I simply have a shortcut for that, and we have specified the path in this way. If you make a binary, that won't be readable. You need to change this path to dot input probably, but anyway, on that point, as I've been mentioning in my previous video, I'm not professionally Go developer, but I've been doing Advent of Code 2020, 22, now with ChatGPT and so on, 2021 with Go, and I've been programming a little bit with Go. I did some small web server, some other small things, but not a program that it's more than 1,000 lines of code, and never work on a big project and so on. Not super familiar with Go, but enough to know the syntax, to know the main building blocks, and to be able to debug the programs and so on. And that's as we have seen so far in this adventures, that's needed. Especially for the hard task, ChatGPT never give us directly applicable solution, and there are some subtle bugs that we need to iterate through and debug and so on. And that's what we've been doing so far. The last part of our files the input, test, and main that are the standard building blocks for Advent of Code. We have also one markdown file in which we store all of the inputs and outputs that we give to GPT-4 or Bing, etc. And we have all of the what code we got and so on. As the main purpose of that is if someone wants to try this stuff, simply not only have what he actually pays to GPT-4 or ChatGPT, etc., but also at this kind of answer part. As you can see now of the days that we have we tried sometimes more than once and so on. We have different approaches and so on. Everything it's available there, even including refresh of the prompt and so on. The main purpose of that is, for example, to be able to compare manually the improvement in performance of models here with ChatGPT, but now with GPT-4 and so on. Eventually, if GPT-4 had turbo version and some other improvement being released, to see, okay, now I'm trying the same prompt, does it change it, and so on. Without more talking about that, let's go to day 13. Day 13 is for a background, if really that's the first video that you're joining, we've been in Advent of Code 2021. We've been in a submarine. We're on the bottom of the ocean and we're hiding in a cave, and we are trying to navigate in this cave and escape some creature that attack us, and we have some challenges related to that, like navigating, spotting where are tunnels, etc., and having some heat maps of things in this cave structure. Now you reach another volcanically active part of the cave. It would be nice if you could do some kind of thermal imaging. Okay, that's interesting. So you could tell ahead of which cave are you too hot to safely enter. Okay, we want to do this thermal imaging and being able to see from outside if a given cave it's safe for us to go with our submarine. Fortunately, the submarine seems to be equipped with thermal camera. Okay, when you activate it, you are greeted with congratulations on your purchase. To activate these infrared thermal imaging cameras, please enter the code found on page 1 of the manual. Apparently the elves have never used this feature. To your surprise, you manage to find the manual. As you go, it open page 1 fallout. It's a large sheet of transparent paper. The transparent paper is marked with random dots and includes instruction on how to fold it up. Your puzzle input. Okay, that's our instruction for dots and includes instruction. Okay, with random dots and include instructions. This is how to fold it up. Puzzle input dots and include instructions. Okay, that's the dots which should be placed on paper, and at the bottom we have our instruction. Fold along y-axis, fold along x-axis. Okay, the first section is a list of dots, transparent paper, representing the top left corner. 0, 0 is here. And the coordinates is below. The coordinate in which from the following pattern is a dot of the paper. Okay, in this table they're showing that's our paper. If we go here is which is 0, 7. Should it be here? We are on a row 0 and column 7. Is below 0, 0. Okay. 0, 7. That's with our, we have 0, 14. Should be one of these two. And it's up to 9. Okay, the X is in this direction. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 up to 9. And the Y is pointing down, which means 0, 7 should be 7 should be here. Okay. Let's fill our input, test input. Firstly, let's copy part 1 from the previous day. We have our part 1. We paste it as you want to follow what we are doing. You need an empty input file. That's for my input, a test file. Main program will be of course empty, and we have our prompt with a context and the first part of the challenge. Let's look if that will be working. We have the context, we want to have the instructions. Initially we were having the instructions and so on only with one letter because of the restriction how much characters we're able to input, but now this restriction are getting relaxed in comparison, and we are more generous with that. Okay, and we have our points. We mark all the points that are marked with this symbol and with dots the empty unmarked positions. There is a list of float instruction. Each instruction includes a line that transparent paper and wants you to fold the paper up. For a horizontal line or left, for vertical line up, it's a horizontal line Y, and for left in this direction it's vertical line. Okay, in this example the first fold instruction, fold along Y7, which design the line formed by of the position is marked with this. Okay, we are on a this one we put it when we are folding a line, we simply put this symbol dash on the entire line, because this horizontal line fold bottom half up. Some of the dots might end up overlapping after the fold is complete. Like we go up and that doesn't change much, does it? Move this once on here, we're making projections from here to here, from here to here, and this one to this one, and so on. Now we have 70 dots are visible. We have cases that they overlap. This one probably overlap with this one, and we lose, so to say, some of them. Notice, for example, the two dots on the bottom left corner before transparent paper is folded. In transparent, the dot just below them in the result remain visible. Okay, because it's transparent paper, you can see the dots under. The same thing for overlapping dots. The second fold instruction folds along X, which indicates the line, this one, and we're going in direction left. This here and here and here. I mean left, it's and this we fold from Y up, and from the other one left to end up with this one, instead of having it on the other side. Okay, the instruction made a square. The transparent paper is pretty big, so for now focus on just complete the first fold. After the first fold in the example above, 17 dots are visible. Dots that end up overlapping after the fold are counted as a single dot. Okay, in our case we need to end up with this big boy and simply count that. That's our challenge. So far so good. We have instructions. Usually the instructions that we do, at least the last part of the second was, if I go back here, blah blah blah, here we were putting the instruction in different places. The last thing that I've read is the best would be to have it as a first thing in the task to be followed after that. And our instructions are simply write a Go program that solves this problem and read the input from, and we're saying what's the file, write a Golang program that solves the problem and read the input from. No, we don't need to. Firstly, we do not want that. Secondly, we are saying okay, do that with the test. Why with the test? Because we want to make sure we have here task, task to solve, the task, using task because it's shorter. We grab our stuff, blah blah blah. We might need to cut off some of the visual stuff later on, but for now let's keep it. And that will be our input. However, before to forget, we need to get that. That's our test file, and we will expect the program to return us 17 in the case, if that's working fine. And let me get my real, as you can see here, the program is actually huge. That's our actual input. We don't use it up to the point that we're not confident that this one is working. Why? Because this one it's easier to debug. With the other one simply will be too many lines and so on. Okay, so far so good. We put our context, we're starting completely new chat, and we're using GPT-4. So far so good. In our prompt day we have context. You're a prominent competitive programmer. You have been invited to participate in programming competition. You're given a task to solve. Instruction: write a Golang program that solves the task and read the inputs from. And after that we have the task, which is a copy and paste. Then we want to see what we'll get from GPT-4. I'm naming these prompts now GPT-4 because before that I was using only ChatGPT and wasn't naming this prompt. Later on I start using heavily Bing because I saw that it's actually better in this description. But now, as you can see at the time this video being made, GPT-4 it's currently capped to 25 messages every 3 hours. We're not allowed to ask too much, and for that I imagine that in some moment we can resort back to having GPT-3 helping us or doing some kind of debugging. Okay, now it starts. Okay, I can see we're having the coordinates. It's doing scanning the file. It's getting the coordinate array, or it's building it. After that, have this float instruction. Let's hope that firstly it's reading all the dots and had the dots. Okay, that's nice. After done with that, it's actually getting the fault coordinates and it's parsing here this value for x and y, and it's trying to fold the stuff, and it's seeing okay how many. It's creating a map with the coordinates and it's counting how many are visible. Okay, so far that looks like a pretty solid. As we always do, we go here, that's our prompt, we put A for answer, we put everything in this Python elixir like comment. The Go code is with very standard code wrapping, again very common for elixir or Python, or quite likely other programming languages. Okay, so far so good. And let's get to the point that we actually check if the program is returning us 17. No, it's running out of range. And let's see where is doing that. 137. Index out of range. Fault instruction. If it's reading the entire file, let's see how it's doing here when we have this. It's stopping here at the moment. I think that's a bit strange. I think that's completely wrong, but let me do print wine cards and let's run the program. Okay, so far it works up to 09, which is the last line. It's doing okay. After that it starts parsing this stuff, but here it's an empty line. In the empty line, in this implementation that I can see there, is simply I can do if when it's empty, continue. We simply skip the empty lines, which is not so bad. If we go now, okay, it's 17 what expected, and now the stuff seems parsed correctly. Now it's the time to simply change to input and see if with our input that will work. We have 720. Let me go to the challenge and see if that's correct, and that's correct. Thank you for your time and see you in day 13 part 2. Have a nice one. Bye.